Hi, it's getting a little cool here in the Northeast during the evenings and turning into really a wonderful afternoon with the highs in sometimes the 80s. So sometimes you're dressed for cooler mornings and cooler evenings, and then during the day, you sort of want to take things off and get adjusted to that weather. And as our bodies are changing with the seasons, especially in those areas and zones where the weather changes like this, then you're getting adjusted. Your body has to get adjusted. So you may be dealing with a little bit more fatigue, or you may be dealing with some additional discomfort, or something's going on and you can't quite feel what it is. And then maybe you're feeling like you just want to bundle up and stay in bed. Okay, all these things have to come into conjunction with not only our circadian rhythms, but also with understanding some of the biggest symptoms that, or the vast majority of people are dealing with, whether it's insomnia, fatigue, or pain. So I've collected from Spectra Cell Labs. They have wonderful downloads that you can review. And what I really like is they offer references on the back, but each area, say fatigue, pain, or insomnia, these areas all revolve around something. And there are some connections, but there's something I will mention about each one of these, is that they all have one similar compound that's missing or that's low, and that's magnesium. So I'm going to read real quick, and I will post below how you can get these Spectra Cell Lab downloads. But just to get a general idea of some of the things that you might be experiencing from either missing amino acids, low amino acids, foods that are supportive to help your body perform and function. So for fatigue, they give a full idea of what it looks like. I'm just going to show you what this looks like. So it gives you a general idea of what you're possibly missing or what you need to manage, because you can overdose in one direction and pull everything over to one side and then cause a little bit of distortions, because aggressive treatments and therapies also can cause some of these issues to go out of balance. So asparagine is one, biotin is the second one, glutamine, serine, coenzyme Q10. You may have heard of some of these. Fructose intolerance, which a lot of people are finding out. You may have some fructose intolerance, or you might have some issues with your glucose. And that is not unusual, because as each generation moves forward, we came from a mother who may or may not have been eating appropriately during pregnancy or during her life. So, you know, just that starting point of knowing where you need to be, and depending on what foods dominated your childhood, and where you need to go in a direction to help to manage these issues that may have been thrown out of balance. So magnesium, as I mentioned, antioxidants, and we'll go into what some of these antioxidants are. Vitamin C, vitamin A, vitamin E, vitamin D, vitamin B. A lot of people are deficient in vitamin B. Carnitine, chromium, and zinc. Now, any of these can be thrown out of balance because of either exposures in our water, in our foods. Maybe you're relying too much on one type of food. Maybe you're relying too much on one type of supplement. So you want to come back to a balancing state. And we'll go into more detail about that. Now, when we get into pain, so this is they're showing what pain might be supportive with. And they're saying cysteine, now that was not mentioned in the fatigue zone. B vitamins, which was mentioned. Oleic acid, which we'll get into that because that helps with neurotransmitters and dopamine. And oleic acid is a fatty acid. And some of these things, or GABA, and there are foods that you can get this oleic acid from. Carnitine, magnesium, minerals. Now, these minerals, which are micronutrients, manganese, copper, selenium, zinc, and calcium, these can all be overdosed or thrown out of balance because you're doing one too many of these types of things. Now, I eat a lot of nuts, and some of these minerals are in those nuts, and you can go nuts from eating too many nuts. So think about all these different things, how we manage it in our body, and our size. Remember that hand size, that's you, and your adult size. Even for children, if you're giving them too many nuts, it might not be just an allergy. It might be you're giving them too much of one type of mineral, okay? So choline, that also is related to brain receptors. Vitamin B, I want to say, we talked about the vitamin Bs for pain reduction. If you are not absorbing your foods and your vitamin B levels are low, any of them can be thrown out of balance. And if they're low, you're going to have an intolerance to pain. So your pain receptors, your nerves, everything in your nervous system is going to be on high alert and more sensitive. And so even with diabetics, they get diabetic nerve pain, they get all kinds of issues. And this is related to some of the things we're seeing and missing in our foods, or we're overdosing in one way and not the other. Vitamin D, huge problem for across the board. Magnesium, vitamin B, and vitamin D. And lipoic acid also helps with neuropathic pain. And we go back to the antioxidants. Clinical trials show antioxidant therapy with vitamin E, vitamin C, and coenzyme Q helps to relieve some of this pain. And we can go into that because mitochondrial dysfunction can have some of these issues, and there's some selenium and glutathione problems and cysteine and alpha lipoic acids. So all of these things need to be addressed to get your fatigue and pain under control. So if you've got chronic fatigue, you've been put into a basket with some of these terminologies, chronic pain, or you're dealing with pancreatitis, hepatitis, inflammatory bowel disease, or encephalitis, or any of these brain injury type issues. Now we're going to go to why we're having sleep issues. Insomnia. We're going back to, this is a smaller thing, but it goes right to brain function, nerve function, circadian rhythms, and getting the root cause of why the brain cannot rest. Vitamin B, thiamine. Vitamin B3, that's B1 is thiamine. B3 is niacin. Folate and vitamin B6, they are cofactors for neurotransmitters. Vitamin B12 normalizes circadian rhythms. This is what we're talking about, the sleep-wake cycle. Magnesium, improving the status for better quality sleep. Zinc and copper, so both interact with N-methyl dispartate receptors in the brain. And oleic acid again, vitamin A. Okay, so all of these things are connected, but in some ratio. And your body is in a place right now where maybe you're just you're out of balance, or maybe you threw yourself way out of balance. Now you got to come back into balance and find that spot in that space, and healing your intestinal tract, or your gastrointestinal tract, which starts in the mouth and goes all the way down to the other end, and getting that all aligned and healed takes time, because it may have been that you have created a lot of gaps in your digestive system that has misaligned your eating absorption of foods, not just eating, but the absorption of these foods. And so these aren't getting absorbed. and there might be holes in your intestine with a leaky gut issue. You might have SIBO or SIBO, whatever you want to call it, small intestine bacterial overgrowth. And a lot of that revolves around yeast. So sometimes you're dealing with a yeast overgrowth or some other bacterial overgrowth. Diane Greco-Allen, Food Relationship Coach. You can find this information below in my YouTube channel. Please click on my bell and subscribe to my channel to learn more about how to get fatigue, pain, and insomnia under control, as well as learning how to be digestively well. Thanks.